We'll start with North Carolina, though, as these moves really go hand in hand, starting with the hire of Armond Hawkins as defensive backs coach. And this is a guy who worked under Steve Belichick last year at Washington. He worked in the secondary, was an analyst in the secondary, and worked in the recruiting. He's looked at as one of the top up-and-coming coaches at that position in the country, really thought of highly in the recruiting world as well. So their familiarity there, obviously, with Steve Belichick, like we said. And then the other move we'll talk about here is that Peyton Waters, a safety from Washington, who was a four-star recruit coming out, is going to be transferring to UNC. He played in all 13 games for Washington last year and coming over now with his coach, Armond Hawkins, as well as Steve Belichick. But this is a guy who, again, who was a former four-star and played in all 13 games.
Yeah, so what you're seeing is Bill Belichick saying, I am not just going to be focused on the Southeast, the Atlantic coast, the Mid-Atlantic. I am going after players all across the country. And a guy like Armond Hawkins, of course, there's a connection there through Steve Belichick. This is somebody who is from California, coached at Arizona, coached at Colorado, coached at USC, and of course, Washington. So he's a West Coast guy opening up all of that recruiting area. And the first proof of that is Peyton Waters, who himself is from Los Angeles, California, 6'1", 182, former four-star player. Watching the film, you could see, just from watching his high school stuff, this is a very long, athletic guy. He looks the part. You look at his, just going through his high school production before we get to the college side. Top 20 safety in the class of 24. So this was a freshman last year, a true freshman last year, coming in with that blue chip pedigree. And then in high school, 1,000-yard rusher or 1,000-yard receiver 2 years in a row. On defense, 64 tackles, 2 picks, 2 fumble returns as a senior, 3 punt return TDs, a kickoff return TD. Played basketball, track and field, 11.35 in the 100, which, for a guy with his size, is pretty good. And also high jump 6'2". Go fast forward to his freshman year playing under Steve Belichick. He played in all 13 games, only 5 tackles, really more of a special teams player, 126 snaps on special teams. But then you go and look at some of the quotes, right, from when he was playing in camp and showing out as a true freshman. Of course, Kamori House, his teammate at Washington, a linebacker, another guy that really showed out at Washington and came over with Belichick to North Carolina. So here's a quote from 247 back when House and Waters were starring in spring for Washington, 2 new North Carolina defenders. This is a quote. I think it's fair to say that Peyton Waters and Kamori House were the surprise true freshman skill position players on the other side of the ball. They just didn't look like kids. They didn't act like the lights were too bright or the stage was too big. So you also hear Jed Fish, the head coach of Washington, single out both of these players, saying we are going to see great things out of Kamori House and Peyton Waters as 2 very promising young players on defense. This is in October. So 2 very young pieces being coached by Steve Belichick and Armond Hawkins, who again both came over. Take those players. Now you're not just renting players at North Carolina. They're going to be in and out. These are young players with promise, with upside that because your defensive staff coached these guys coming all the way from the West Coast to North Carolina, and hopefully building blocks of the defense and something that's built to last and not just for this particular season.
Yeah, and just looking at the huddle highlights, the high school clips there for Peyton Waters, a lot of corner being played by him. So seems like someone with a lot of ability and coverage, and obviously a calling card to Belichick defenses is guys who can play all over the board.
You got Rory Blake saying Washington will also lose another. So potentially some inside info here in the group chat, live chat. We appreciate all you guys joining us and providing the insights. So listen, Rory, if we get that news, if we get that notification, we'll cover that next transfer and we'll give you the shout out there. But anytime you lose a defensive coordinator and a defensive back coach, you could see some attrition there. Washington really, to me, is I don't say an ascendant program because they were in the championship 2 years ago, but they are going in the right direction after a total reset. So we'll see where that program goes. Obviously, defensively, losing 2 very, very young players with House, and Peyton Waters. So we'll see how it goes at UNC. But I just like the fact that, look, it's like you saw Colorado, right? There were so many players that were there just for a season, just to turn it around fast. You need to build on almost 2 parallel tracks, right? And these are guys that are theoretically going to be there for the long haul. And look, if Steve Belichick is the heir apparent and he's the head coach at UNC in 2-3 years, these could be his seniors, right? Guys that he coached when he started his defensive coordinator career over there on the West Coast. So 2 names to watch. But yeah, Waters, man, just watching that film, good looking player, good size, good athleticism. You see him being a safety. And look, what's Bill Belichick's favorite position on the field? Safety, right? That's the guys he spends the most time on, just like Nick Saban. Those guys are really an extension of him on the field. He loves having smart, versatile safeties. He drafted a ton. You think about McCourty's and some of the guys that he's had there at New England. Could this be the next one that is the coach on the field for the Belichicks? We'll see, but it's going to be fun to watch his career as he progresses.